minutes and they get paralyzed. Now, I know what you're thinking at this point, because I was thinking the same thing. I can understand if the parents walked outside and the kids are like, oh no, it's an alien, and the parents look around the corner and they go, oh, that's weird, there's nothing there, my kids must be imagining stuff. But if you were a parent and you walked outside and your kids are running around, they're going, oh my god, no, aliens are getting us, I would think they were playing around. If I saw a branch fall off of a walnut tree, you're like, oh no, my walnuts. If I saw a branch get knocked off a walnut tree, if I saw two kids running and then go paralyzed and hit the ground, I'm not going to be like, oh, those rapscallions, they're just playing around. I'd be like, oh, you know that they always play that game, Loss of Central Nervous System. It's just we used to play that as kids too. You would go, oh no, there's some sort of emergency going on. But apparently, okay, so let me finish the story. So, and I'm gonna tell you this right now before I keep going. This isn't from Backpackerverse. This story is from several reputable UFO sources, not even just websites, but from UFO literature. Okay, so there's no twist at the ending where I'm like, surprise, I found out it was invented in 2018. No, this story goes back to 1955 when it was reported. So, where did I leave off? Because it still isn't even the weirdest part yet. Two kids get paralyzed, walnut tree is destroyed or branch broken off. You have the mechanical arm. Still, we're coming up to, this is my favorite part. This is hands down my favorite part. So now the domed ship in the distance, a portal opens up, like a little doorway, right? And out comes another alien. Now this alien has the same head as the alien who was hiding behind the corner. Has the big red eyes, big red mouth, a little diamond, little like red things that sparkle like diamonds. But he has two arms, but at the elbow it becomes two more arms. So he has four forearms, four hands on each. Like he has a shoulder to elbow, and then the arm splits. And his body doesn't taper down like a little Casper ghost. He has four tendrils. He just kind of hovers above the ground. Hops out of the ship. He's just hovering above the ground with his weirdo arms and his weirdo legs. And then there's a kid there. We have names a few of these kids. We had Kermit. We have this kid. His name is Ronnie Strickland. He said that the alien telepathically told him, hey, go climb that tree. We'll pick you up in 15 minutes. And he's like, yes, master, yes. And he starts walking towards the tree. Now, an other kid as well must have gotten the command, because an other kid starts walking towards the tree with Ronnie. Now, you have all of this chaos going on, so kids are trying to just not get paralyzed themselves, trying to save their walnut trees. They're like, this is for my science fair project. No. It's basically every man for themselves, so they don't see what Ronnie and this other kid are doing at first. But they do end up climbing a tree, and they sit up there for 15 minutes. So, this story supposedly took place between 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. This was going on. I know I've been kind of saying, then this happens, and this happens. Supposedly, all of these events took 3 hours from beginning to end. These must be the worst parents in the world, who they're like, oh yeah, kids love to play the same game for 3 hours. They love to play Paralyzed on the Ground. That's such a popular game. They saw it on Leave It for Beaver. Oh, they love playing that game where they're just petrified, pointing at nothing, going, please, mommy, help me. Oh, it's such a great game. This goes on for 3 hours. So they're waiting up in the tree for 15 minutes. And then you still have this core group of kids, and they're trying to get, this is my favorite part of the story. They're trying to get the kids down from the tree. They're like, no, Ronnie, no, other kid. Get down from the tree. I don't know if it's the same tree as the walnut tree. That would be hilarious. The other branch is getting ready to break. They're like, no, I eat walnuts. I have to forage those before winter. We're going to hibernation. And their kids are just sitting up in the tree. So then, after 15 minutes, a UFO comes down, and they said it's shaped like Saturn. So it had like a ball in the middle, had this ring around it. Okay, dude, this is so great. I love this. Oh, did I tell you? I should say this right now. Put you in a little bit of suspense here, but I want to make sure I give credit. I had read this story this weekend, and then just the other day, Chop Top on YouTube said, hey, have you ever heard the story of the Casablanca entities? And I was like, I just read that story, but I wanted to give him credit. So, Chop Top, thank you for recommending this story. He definitely sped it along. I probably would have waited a little bit longer to do this, but I want to give you guys credit when credit's due. So, back to the story. there's this hovering ball. There's this ball with like this Saturn-like ring, right? And Ronnie and this other kid are standing in this tree, sitting in this tree. Now, little dudes, little Martian guys, are now walking out of the UFO, and they're like hanging off of the Saturn ring, reaching for the boys. They're like, come on, get in the ship, get in the ship. And Ronnie and the other kid are like hypnotically trying to reach for the aliens. And their friends are like, oh my god, we're about to watch your friends get kidnapped. Go to another planet. So how do you get kids out of a tree? Let me rephrase it. How do you quickly get kids out of the tree? My scenario would be just throw stuff at them. But I'm an adult, so I could throw hard enough to knock a kid out of a tree. I could be like, oh, this rock will do it, and just like hit him in the ribs and be like, ah. But a kid can't throw that hard. So they go and they grab a hose, right? They go and they grab a hose and they're like, hit it. And they turn the water on and they straight up start blasting these kids. They're in a tree. They're blasting these kids with the hose. Thinking, actually, they're not trying to knock the kids out of the tree. They're trying to wake them up. So don't throw rocks if a kid is hypnotized in a tree. They start blasting their friends with this hose. And Ronnie's like, what? He wakes up from his hypnosis. And he sees these little guys like hanging off of the ship, and they're like, we'll get you next time. And Ronnie climbs down the tree, but the other kid is still hypnotized, and they're just blasting this kid with this hose. And then finally he falls out of the tree. The aliens can't get him, so he falls out of the tree and then floats through. I love this. He falls out of the tree. He doesn't hit the ground. He floats across the yard and lands on a roof. Lands on a roof safely. So somehow he started to fall, he levitates, he goes back up, because the tree's not as tall as the house, I'm assuming, unless it's this giant tree. He falls out of the tree, he slowly levitates, he ends up on the top of the house, walks off the house. He walks off the house after just being magically levitated across the yard. These kids are watching their friend. They're about to see him fall out of the tree. They're like, oh no! And then something catches him. He slowly glides through the air. They're like, oh, good. And then he just takes a step and falls off the house. He lands on his head. He falls off a 2-story house, presumably. Even a 1-story house. But he falls off the house. He lands right on his head. And then all the UFOs disappear. So, that is the story of the Casablanca entity. On the Cryptopia website, which has been a huge resource for this show in the past week or two, I found a lot of great stories from that. And I read it and I go, there's no way this story's true. And I actually had a really hard time finding backup resources for it. And I thought, this is the only site where I could find the story. I go, this is most likely fake, or the author's just having a joke. Maybe there's an April Fool's story or something like that. But I spent the past 2 days, every so often I'd kind of go back to it looking for references. And he mentioned a couple authors, and he's like, this UFO author covered this story, but he wasn't really saying what sources I could find it at. And so right before I decided to do this story today, because I was talking to Chop Top on YouTube, decided to do the story today, and originally I was going to say there's only one source for this, it's this one website, but I went back, revisited his article, found the name of an author, typed in that name of the author, Casablanca Entities, found a paper he wrote that includes this story, along with very well-known UFO story, the Kelly Hopkins story, the Hopkinsville story, or whatever, Kellysville, it doesn't matter, it's a little goblin story. That's fairly well known, that there's a house and a bunch of goblins attack it. Kelly Hopkins, it doesn't matter. The point is that as stupid as this story is, it's very, very obscure, but it is it is written about by reputable authors. Once I was able to get that author's name, a bunch of resources popped up. I think Casablanca is just such a generic name. It was really hard to find this stuff, but once I was able to match Casablanca to the author's name, I found article after article after article detailing this stuff from, again, established UFO websites. So, is this story true? Again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but either they're making it up, someone else made it up, they're misinterpreting real-life events, or it's true. I think those are always the 4 things we can look at with this type of story. There's no evidence. We could go out to see if there's a walnut tree with no branch. But let's assume that just for the sake of fun that it's true, because again, we can't really prove it either way. I had to read this article multiple times, and I had to read a bunch of resources on it. There is a through line in this story that makes it genuinely terrifying. Every single thing that the aliens do, let's presume they're aliens, every single thing the aliens do once they show up is to divide and conquer. The ghost showing up around the corner of the house distracted all the kids, so the one kid would start walking towards the ship. And while people were focusing on getting the kid from walking towards the ship, the mechanical arm appeared to the one child, beckoning him over there. The alien comes out with the guns to paralyze 2 kids, whittling their number down from 8 to 6. You had the 2 kids hypnotized. Instead of hypnotizing all of them, it was almost like they simply wanted any one of those children. No one was the particular target. But it was all about distraction and attraction. It was a hunt. The fact that the parents couldn't see anything makes it even more creepy. Because what child wants to live in a world where they are surrounded by dangers that are invisible to the people who can protect them the most? This story has never been replicated as far as I know. There's never been such a massive alien presence in a neighborhood, really in 2 yards, in a football field and a home. There's nothing that parallels this. Why did this happen in that neighborhood? Has it happened since or before? But more importantly, is that a viable hunting strategy? I mean, it could have worked in almost any other location. A campsite where a kid is lured off into the bushes. Another neighborhood where kids don't play in groups, but just a kid walking home alone. That's terrifying. Because it doesn't seem like they're after anyone particular. It seems like they were the alien equivalent of a human predator. Any child will do. So for all the fun and all the ridiculous stuff that happens in that story, that's the terrifying through line. They were hunting. And they came close several times. But hunters rarely give up. They may move where they hunt, they may change tactics, but eventually, they'll bring home that trophy. DeadRabbitRadio@gmail.com is going to be our email address. You can also hit us up at Facebook.com/DeadRabbitRadio. Twitter is @DeadRabbitRadio. Dead Rabbit Radio is the daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime podcast. You don't have to listen to it every day, but I'm glad you listened to it today. Have a great one, guys. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dead Rabbit Radio Classics, where we listen to a classic episode with a new intro. It's a little more than a new intro. It's an insight to how the episode was developed, why I chose the episode to be featured as a repeat. This episode is notable for a couple reasons. One, first off, this is one of my favorite episodes. I should say that right now. It's one of my favorite episodes. It's funny because it kind of seems to fly under the radar. People will be like, what, episode 144? It's not one of your main stories. It's not Monkeys Don't Exist. You never reference it in the past. It's one of my favorite episodes for a couple of reasons. First off, though, I really love the first story. It deals with ghost physics, which I really, really like. It ends with an interesting twist. I actually got a lot of complaints about this first story. People were saying that I got the location of bricks wrong. Bricks are coming from different... Okay, first off, I don't respond to negative comments at all. I just don't. It's not... to be honest, I don't even read them. Once I can figure out it's a negative tone in an email or a comment or something, I just stop reading. And I've become pretty savvy with that over the years, even before doing the podcast. If I got an email from a girl and I could just sense it was a breakup email, I don't read it. Halfway through, I'm done, I stop reading it. So that skill's come in super handy here, because I'll get an email and be like, hey, professor! I'm done reading. I don't even read anything past that. But I did see these emails, I was skimming them. You dolt. I don't even wrong. The bricks are wrong. And dude, this ain't a brick podcast. Plus, also, that would be a boring podcast. Plus, also, it's all in the show notes. So just check the show notes. But I got a bunch of brick-related complaints about this first episode. Super bizarre. Super bizarre. I think I remember it because it was such a bizarre complaint. The episodes I do that I think people are going to complain about, they don't. Like, I thought people were going to complain about the inflatable testicle cult